Millionaire shocked after meeting female beggar girl who looks just like his missing daughter. The city skyline blurred under the weight of a relentless rain, crackling with electric tension. Inside his luxury penthouse, Charles Matthews stared out at the gray chaos below, heart pounding as memories clawed at his chest. 2 decades had passed since his little girl, Anna, vanished without a trace. 2 decades of silence, doubt, and unbearable guilt. But today something broke through the storm. Outside a cramped cafe, a young woman sat slumped on the wet sidewalk. Her clothes were torn, stained with dirt and rain, her face streaked with grime. But Charles froze. It wasn't just any street girl. There was a haunting familiarity. Sharp cheekbones, the same deep hazel eyes his Anna had possessed. It was like seeing a ghost stitched from his shattered past. Anna, his voice barely rose above a whisper, trembling with a mix of hope and fear. She looked up, startled, confusion flashing across her face. When their eyes met, Charles felt a lump rising in his throat, a sudden tightness that made his hands shake. How could she be here, like this, living on the edges of a city he ruled with power and steel? People around the cafe began murmuring, eyes full of judgment and curiosity. Isn't she that girl who's been begging on the corner for weeks? Looks like trouble. The crowd pulled back slowly as Charles crouched closer to the girl, brushing a wet strand of hair from her dirt-smudged face. "Anna Johnson," she said quietly, almost swallowing her own words like they scared her. "That's my name." It didn't make sense. How could this ordinary girl, caked in the grit of the streets, carry the name and the face of the daughter he lost? Charles's brain raced. Questions hit him like fists. Was she hiding from something? Did she know what happened to his Anna all those years ago? Could she possibly hold the keys to a locked nightmare he'd never dared to open? The rain hammered harder, drowning out the whispers. The city seemed to hold its breath in this impossible moment. Charles's chest slammed painfully with old wounds, guilt, regret, desperate hope, crashing against the cold tiles beneath them. Then, out of nowhere, the atmosphere snapped. A tall man stormed through the crowd, fury flashing in his eyes. He grabbed the girl's arm and pulled her back like a protective wolf. "What are you doing talking to him?" the man spat at Charles. "Stay away from us. You don't know anything about her." The man's name was David, Anna Johnson's husband, according to her. His harsh words sliced through the fragile connection forming between father and daughter, stirring anger and fear like a summer storm. Their voices rose, each word heavier with accusation, doubt, and invisible scars neither wanted to show. Just when tension seemed ready to crack wide open, Charles's phone buzzed wildly in his pocket, a warning that a disaster was unfolding at one of his biggest construction sites. A sudden, violent collapse threatened to end his reign and maybe his life. The world he thought he ruled was crumbling beneath him, and so was the fragile hope of reunion. Then, from the shadows of his past, Mary appeared, Anna's mother. Her icy stare promised more secrets than answers. She stepped forward with a revelation so shattering, it could rewrite everything Charles had believed about his family, or bury what little hope remained forever. Rain-slicked streets, shouting crowds, a missing. Can this fractured family find its way back from the edge, or will the darkness tear them apart once and for all? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. As Charles stared, Mary's cold gaze pierced through the chaos, a window into a past he had bellied deep. "You shouldn't be here," she spat, voice shaking with fury, yet tinged with fear. Her presence twisted the air around the... "Oh, isn't it?" Charles shot back, fighting to keep calm. "She looks like our daughter. She's..." Mary stepped forward, blocking Charles's view of Anna, her body tensed like a coiled spring, poised for an explosion. "No, you don't get to just show up after 20 years and act like you care." The harshness in her tone cut like glass, and Charles flinched. But as the tension heightened, something went wrong. A shadow shifted behind Mary. A man emerged, eyes wild with desperation. It was David, Anna's supposed spouse. "She's not who you think," he shouted, voice cracking under the weight of his revelation. The crowd grew restless, murmurings roiling like a storm. Charles's heart raced. Was he about to hear the truth about Anna? Suddenly, David lunged forward, grabbing Anna's arm with an urgency that screamed danger. "Don't say anything." His eyes darted between Charles and Mary, as if weighing the depth of their desperation against his own. "David, let her go," Mary commanded, her authority muted by trepidation. Tension slithered through the crowd like a river, waiting to burst. Charles's pulse pounded in his ears. "What aren't you telling me?" he demanded, desperation flooding his words. The sky matched the tempest in their hearts, gray and heavy with unshed rain. Anna stood there, caught between two worlds, separating father and mother, past and present. Just as David opened his mouth to speak, a sharp crack split the air, echoing like thunder. A flash of panic crossed Charles' mind as he turned to see the cafe's glass facade shatter. People screamed, scattering like prey before a predator. "Get down!" Charles yelled, instinctively pushing Anna to the ground, shielding her with his body as shards of glass rained down around them. Confusion erupted. The crowd surged backward, chaos enveloping them. Amid the mayhem, a dark figure emerged from the wreckage, a smirk playing on his lips. Charles's heart dropped. Recognition dawned with an icy grip. "Victor?" he gasped, dreading what this man represented. Victor, a longtime enemy, had smiles carved from malice. "Miss me, Charles?" he called out, voice dripping with mockery. "You thought you could forget me? You didn't even know the truth." The eyes of everyone snapped to Victor. A dangerous silence fell. David tightened his grip on Anna. Mary's face turned white as a ghost, her panic palpable. "What truth?" Charles growled, rising to confront this specter from his past. Victor stepped closer, eyes gleaming with twisted delight. "Your daughter? She's not lost, Charles. She's been here all along. And she's not the only one." A gut-wrenching chill crept over the scene. The implications coiled tightly around Charles's chest. How could that be? Anna was supposed to be lost forever. Victor leaned in, his voice a low hiss, barely audible over the distant sirens growing ever closer. "You have no idea what's been happening while you played king up there in your tower. Your family isn't what you think." Before Charles could respond, the world flipped again. David pushed Anna away sharply, staggering back as the chaos erupted again. "No!" he shouted, fear writhing in his voice. "You can't do this." In that electrifying moment, it felt like time stopped. Anna looked between Charles and David, lost. What did that mean for her? And suddenly, the truth of it all felt like a knife edge. What secrets loomed in the shadows of their lives? Charles could feel the storm brewing, stronger than any rain that fell outside. Was Anna truly his daughter? Or was she something more entwined in a web of deception? The city roared around them, the thunder of discovery echoing loud and clear. Everything was about to change. But how? The world spun, and Charles braced for the impact of the truth. Charles braced himself, heart racing as he stared down Victor, the shadow from his past. "What do you mean she's been here all along?" The crowd tensed, breaths held tight. David's grip on Anna slackened just a fraction, revealing the fear flickering in his eyes. Mary's pale face twisted, a storm of emotions crashing within her. The world around them faded to a dull roar, and all that mattered was this dangerous moment. "I didn't want to show my hand just yet. But it seems you forced my hand," Victor taunted, stepping closer, basking in the drama he'd orchestrated. "You really think she's just a beggar? Open your eyes, Charles." Charles stared at Anna. She looked confused, lost between worlds. "What's he talking about?" he demanded, voice rising. Victor smirked, that sickening grin spreading across his face. After Anna disappeared, there were whispers, rumors, secrets buried under rubble you've built your empire on. "She's been part of this city, our daughter, tied like a string to this mess. Your perfect life?" Inside his chest, something shattered. "No, she can't be. Anna." But then it hit him like a tidal wave. Questions surged. Could it be true? Had Anna known all along? Whispers. Mary's voice cracked like glass, scrambling for clarity. "What do you mean?" Victor waved his hand dismissively, eyes glinting with mischief. "Did you think she just vanished without a trace? No, my friends. She was here, and not alone. Other lives were ruined, and she was left to fend for herself, while you built your empire, thinking it was all behind you." The crowd around them began to murmur, disbelief painting their faces. "What did he mean? Why should we believe you?" David challenged, putting himself firmly between Anna and Victor. "You're nothing but a liar." But Victor laughed, a dark, dangerous sound. "And you're nothing but a fool, thinking you could protect her from the truth." Just then, the ground trembled. The air crackled as an explosion rocked the vicinity. A distant but ferocious blast echoed through the streets, rattling windows. People screamed, running for safety. "Get down!" Charles shouted instinctively, pulling Anna close. But she slipped from his grasp, eyes wide with confusion and fear, staring at Victor with frantic intensity. "Please, just tell me," she pleaded. Victor's demeanor shifted, as if the chaos outside stirred something deeper within him. "You'd really like to know? Who she is?" In that moment, something shattered, not merely the windows, but the very fabric of their reality. Victor stepped closer to Anna, voice barely a whisper. "You're not just Anna Johnson. You're Anna Matthews, the daughter of Charles Matthews. You were never lost. You were hidden. And now, it's time you know, you've always been destined to take back the legacy." Stunned silence enveloped them. The words hung like smoke, thick and suffocating. "Wait!" Charles stumbled back, the ground shifting beneath him. "What do you mean, destined?" Everything slowed, confusion spilling into dread. The world spun, colors blurred. Shadows danced around them. "Anna," Victor continued, "it's time for you to choose your side. Your father or me?" Charles's heart raced at the implications. "No, what did you do to her?" But Anna's eyes, once full of confusion, were now alight with something else. A fire ignited. "What did you do to me?" Victor laughed. Turning back is no longer an option. The truth crashed down around them, echoing louder than the chaos. In an instant, the narrative shifted. Everything Charles thought he lost might have been part of a dark, orchestrated scheme. Anna stepped forward, conflicted but determined. "What is my legacy?" As the chaos thundered through the streets, that one question carved through the chaos, leaving shards of hope and despair in its wake. Charles felt the weight of the world crashing down while a new storm brewed on the horizon. One that promised more secrets, more revelations. And in that charged moment, he knew nothing would ever be the same again. Anna's question hung in the air, a spark that ignited an inferno. "What is my legacy?" Her voice trembled, caught in the web of tension swirling around them. Charles felt time slow, each heartbeat ricocheting within his chest. Was this it? The moment of revelation? The crowd held its breath, eyes darting between Anna and the men positioned as her guardians. David's gaze burned with pride and protective urgency. Mary's face twisted in anguish, raw memories flashing with every breath. And Victor, he reveled in the chaos, urging more with each word. "You were never just lost. You were a pawn," Victor said, his voice a coil of deceit. "You belong to something bigger. Your legacy is power, Anna. Power that could make this city tremble at your command." "No," Charles shouted, fear slicing through him. "That's a lie. She's my daughter." But Victor laughed, the sound a chilling melody against the chaos of the moment. "Is she, Charles? You think you've been searching for her all this time? But what if I told you she's been waiting? The question is, waiting for whom?" In a sharp breath, gray clouds thickened above them, droplets of rain shaking loose as a distant rumble of thunder echoed through the streets. People in the crowd murmured, their confusion mixing with horror. "Let's find out together," Victor taunted. His eyes danced like flames. Suddenly, crack, a harsh sound split the air. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and Charles's heart pounded violently. A blinding light flashed, erupting from behind the cafe, as a wave of heat surged forward. "Get down!" Charles yelled again, his instincts kicking in. He threw himself atop Anna, desperate to shield her from what was about to happen. An explosion rippled through the air, sending shards of wood and metal flying in every direction. Bystanders screamed, adrenaline fueling their flight from the chaos that exploded closer to them. The world fell into a chaos of dust and trembling earth. When the chaos faded, darkness descended, smothering the light. Charles lifted his head, a layer of debris shielding his eyes. The air sat thick with smoke, pain radiating through his body. He coughed, tasting ash on his tongue, eyes straining to see. "Anna!" he rasped, panic clawing at his throat. "Are you okay?" Silence. Then, "I'm here!" Her voice broke through like a lifeboat in a storm. He craned his neck, searching through the dust, desperate to find her. In the hazy aftermath, they stumbled to their feet, disoriented. Anna stood inches away, but seemed different somehow. Her expression, eyes glinting with something new. Behind her, Victor was only a shape, barely visible, but unease radiated from him like heat waves off asphalt. "Stay back!" David shouted, pushing closer to Anna. But she didn't flinch. "Anna," Charles reached out, confusion ripping through him. "What's going on?" She turned to him, but it wasn't the lost girl he'd imagined. "I know who I am," she said slowly, each word a careful step. "And I know what I was meant to do." The crowd looked on, stunned, unaware of the brewing storm. But Charles's heart sank as realization hit. Who was this girl standing before him? Suddenly, the ground quaked again. But this time, it wasn't just the aftermath of an explosion. It felt deeper, a primal force rising from the earth. Charles's eyes widened, dread curling in his stomach. Then, out of the shadows, more figures emerged. A group, men and women, faces hidden beneath hoods, their presence heavy with intent. They moved like quicksilver, weaving through the rubble with a single purpose. "Victor, this was not part of the plan," one of them hissed, eyes glinting like daggers in the dim light. "She wasn't supposed to come into her power yet." Victor shot him an incredulous look, fury igniting his features. "You don't understand. She's critical for this." Anna's expression shifted. A flicker of recognition ignited her gaze. "What are you talking about?" And that's when Charles's world warped. "What power?" he whispered, realizing with a thunderous jolt. They were right. Anna held more than just a name. She possessed something dark hidden within. "But my daughter is innocent." His voice cracked, resonating with disbelief. The figures closed in, tension slicing the air as they drew nearer. "Alice Matthews," one of them said, voice steady as the eye of a storm. "It's time you embraced your legacy." The room felt cold and electric all at once. A name he hadn't heard in years, the one connected to the deepest heartache. His wife. What did this mean? With each passing second, the truth hung in the balance. All the lies, the secrets, the illusions, they were interwoven in a tapestry thicker than he could grasp. "Wait, this isn't real," he stammered, unable to comprehend. The crowd held on to that tension, breaths hitched, eyes wide. Everything they believed was about to unravel. And then, Anna looked at him, no longer just a daughter, but a storm of destiny, tangled in the very chaos they faced. "I need to find out the truth." As the weight of destiny wrapped around them, uncertainty rode high. What lay buried in their past? Which path would Anna take? Moments fell like grains of sand, and this fragile moment would change everything. The storm was coming, and their lives would never be the same. Anna's question hung in the air, sending ripples of tension through the crowd. "What is my legacy?" Her voice trembled, but there was fire in her gaze, raw determination igniting something deep within her. Charles felt a rush of emotion flood his senses, fear, confusion, and a desperate hope that pulled at his heart. As the figures closed in around them, everything seemed to blur, the looming question suspended in the chaos. "You were never just lost, you were a pawn," Victor taunted, his voice dripping with malice. "You belong to something bigger. Your legacy is power, Anna." "No." Charles's voice cracked, adrenaline surging through him. "She's my daughter." But the silence grew heavier, closing in like a vice. Anna stepped forward, eyes narrowing, determination hardening her features. "What did you mean hidden? Who am I?" The crowd held its breath, caught between fear and anticipation. Victor seemed to revel in their fear, leaning closer, words falling from his lips like poisoned honey. "Your legacy is the key to a world you can't even imagine. You are the one meant to take it back." Then suddenly, before anyone could react, the ground shook again, this time deeper. Dust swirled in the air, creating a thick haze. Charles steadied himself, heart racing. He grabbed Anna's hand, ready to pull her back, but something shifted. It was not just the aftermath of the chaos, but something darker, something primal. "Get back!" David shouted, pushing Anna behind him. But her eyes, their depth, their intensity, they were changing. "Stop!" Charles cried, feeling panic claw at his chest. "Anna, don't listen to him." But then, amid the confusion, something extraordinary happened. Anna's expression morphed, her features sharpening, as if transforming before their eyes. She stepped forward again, pulling her hand from David's grip, and something flickered around her. A shimmering light, subtle at first, but growing brighter. "Anna, what are you doing?" Charles's throat tightened, fear mixing with disbelief. The figures from the shadows moved again, drawn like moths to a flame. "It's happening!" one of them shrieked, barely able to contain their excitement. "At last!" Then, without warning, the shimmering light exploded outward, a shockwave of energy radiating through the air. The ground rumbled, and the crowd gasped, faces frozen in terror, as Anna's eyes glowed like embers, revealing a truth that was never meant to be uncovered. "No!" Victor screamed, his voice cracking with rage. "You can't control it!" But it was too late. Anna was transformed. Something ancestral and powerful awoke within her. The aura around her pulsed, connecting to the crowd, drawing them in with a magnetic force. It wasn't just her power. It was a legacy they had all been tethered to, a secret buried deep beneath the city's foundations. "What is this?" Charles shouted, panic threatening to consume him. "Anna!" But she stood tall now, her gaze steady, a world of strength surging behind her. "I am Anna Matthews. I'll take back what's been taken." A collective gasp erupted. Murmurs of shock whispered through the onlookers. Relationships tore at the seams. David's face went pale with anxiety. Mary's eyes wide with horror. And then Victor's laughter rang out, a deep laughter that echoed ominously around them. "You think you can control it? You are the heir to a throne made of shadows, and this city has more secrets than you can fathom." At that moment, the ground split, a jagged crack tearing through pavement and earth, rumbling beneath their feet. The air crackled with energy, and as heads turned to look for safety, the shadows grew longer and darker. Charles felt his heart drop. "Anna, get back!" But she didn't listen. She stepped forward, eyes locked on the darkness swirling at her feet. With her final words echoing like thunder, she declared, "You'll find out soon enough." And with that, the shadows consumed Anna in an engulfing embrace, pulling her from sight. The last thing Charles saw was her fierce determination before she vanished into darkness. The world around him spun, chaos erupting, ringing with shouts and screams. "Anna!" Charles cried out, lunging forward. But it was too late. The abyss yawned, his daughter lost. The crowd erupted into panic, crashing against one another, lost in their own terror. As the shadows receded, leaving only echoes of despair, dread washed over Charles. He stood paralyzed, heart pounding as a new truth sank in deep. Anna was gone. But was she really gone? What would she become? Victor turned to him, eyes gleaming with a twisted glee. "It's not over yet, Charles. This is just the beginning." And in that moment, as the city held its breath, clarity struck Charles deep in the gut. Nothing would ever be the same again. The threads of fate shifted, intertwining in dark and unexpected ways, and all he could think was, "What have we unleashed?" As the dust settled, Charles stood still, heart racing, mind spiraling into chaos. Anna was gone, swallowed by shadows, and Victor was relishing every moment. "It's not over yet, Charles," he sneered. "This is just the beginning." But before Charles could respond, a sudden surge of energy erupted in the air, an explosive force that seemed to rise from the very ground they stood on. The earth quaked, tremors racing through the crowd. People stumbled, faces twisted in fear. Charles felt the ground beneath him ripple, as if a beast was awakening from slumber. "Get back!" he shouted, instinctively pulling Mary closer, desperation clawing at his chest. But the vibrations surged, brighter than lightning, until everything erupted in blinding white light. In an instant, the world collapsed into darkness. Silence swallowed the chaos. Time itself felt suspended, as if they were trapped in a moment that would never end. Charles blinked, eyes trying to adjust, breaths coming in ragged gasps. Then, from the abyss, echoes began to return. Murmurs, whispers, voices intertwining. "What just happened? Where are we?" The crowd buzzed with confusion, fears igniting anew. Charles blinked hard, trying to gather himself. But a deep, pulsating light broke through the darkness. At its center, Anna emerged, transformed, luminous, ethereal. The shadows that once enveloped her were now coiling around her like loyal serpents. It was mesmerizing and terrifying all at once. "Anna!" Charles gasped, tears blurring his vision. "You're back! I thought—" But then, a low rumble cascaded through the air, cutting through his joy. From the light, something shifted again, revealing figures stepping forth. They moved with purpose, cloaked and commanding. And, standing at their front, was a woman, tall and powerful, her eyes glowing with the same fire that now radiated from Anna. "Welcome home, daughter of the legacy," the woman said, voice steady, yet it pricked at Charles's skin like needles. "You are the chosen one, destined to reclaim what is rightfully yours." What do you mean?" Anna stuttered, confusion dancing across her face, slowly turning into something fierce. Victor sneered, watching with glee. "Looks like the puppet strings don't just extend to Charles. Anna's truly a part of something far greater than either of you could fathom." At that instant, the woman drew closer, hand outstretched. "You are not just Charles's daughter. You are Anna Carter, heir to a legacy built on power and blood. This has always been your path." Shockwaves roared through Charles. Anna was not just his daughter. She was tied to something dark, something he had no idea about. Each word pulled at his insides, unraveling the very fabric of his identity as a father, as a protector. "No!" he screamed, panic surging. "That can't be true!" But Anna's gaze hardened, fierce resolve reflecting in her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me? Who am I, really?" "Anna, don't listen to them," he shouted, fear worming its way into his gut. Yet she stood there, mesmerized, drawn to the truth like a moth to a flame. And that's when the unexpected happened. The woman smirked, and from behind her, darkness unfurled. It was swirling and dark, alive, roiling towards them like a tidal wave. Then, with a furious crack, the shadows lashed out, coiling around Victor. Charles's breath caught in his throat. Victor's face twisted in horror as dark tendrils wrapped around him, pulling him back into the shadows, his screams swallowed whole. Everything shattered, falling apart in an instant. The crowd gasped, caught between shock and fear. Then the dark energy surged toward Anna, enveloping her. But instead of fear, a smile curled on her lips. "Finally," she whispered, the shadows shimmering around her like a cloak. Everything Charles thought he knew turned upside down. Anna was becoming something he couldn't grasp. "Anna!" he screamed, panic and confusion flooding his voice. "Stop this!" And as the shadows swirled, wrapping around her, reality twisted further, revealing a truth more staggering than he ever feared. All he could do was watch, powerless, breathless, as the darkness consumed the girl he knew, leaving him stranded at the edge of a terrifying new world. As the shadows swirled around Anna, she stood tall, and the darkness seemed to pulse with her newfound power. "Finally," she whispered, her eyes alight with something no longer innocent but fierce and resolute. Charles felt a raw fear gripping his heart, a cold sweat trickling down his back. But at that moment, the woman standing before Anna, the one with the burning eyes, reached out her hand. "You've been chosen to reclaim your birthright, Anna Carter," she proclaimed. As her voice resonated through the air, a wave of energy rippled through the crowd, drawing gasps and wide-eyed stares. Just as Anna began to respond, words teetering on her lips, the ground trembled violently. The eruption of energy And then, in a shocking turn, the air cracked with a loud bang. A blinding white light pierced through the roof of the cafe, illuminating everything in a searing brightness that made Charles shield his eyes. The atmosphere shifted, electric with potential and danger. But the light wasn't just illuminating. It was coiling, twisting. Shadows writhed in its wake, forming figures that loomed large as the air thickened. Charles felt his breath hitch. No, please, not again, he murmured, the insidious dread creeping into his veins. Anna was at the center of it all, her eyes wide, looking more like a queen than a girl lost in the chaos. "What is this? What's happening?" she cried, both frightened and enthralled by the power building around her. The woman smirked, taking a step closer, the shadows behind her dancing eagerly, forming tendrils that wanted to caress and embrace Anna. "It's time to awaken your true self," she said softly, almost like a lullaby laced with venom. But just as Anna opened her mouth to question further, a thunderous shockwave erupted. Without warning, a tremendous force blasted from the newly formed chasm, throwing everyone off balance. Charles was sent sprawling to the ground, gasping for air as debris fell around him. "Anna!" he screamed, panic rising like bile in his throat. And then it hit. A figure, a towering man, emerged from the chaos, wreathed in light, but with a darkness that clung to him like a second skin. The crowd gasped collectively, voices whispering, "Is it? No way." Charles's heart raced as he recognized the newcomer, a face twisted in familiarity. "Joseph!" "Surprise, brother," the man said, stepping closer, a grin splitting his face. "Did you really think you left everything behind? I'm here to collect." Confusion gripped Charles. Joseph, the brother he had long thought dead, the one involved in dark dealings that had cost him everything. Why had he come back now? The crowd shifted uneasily. David backed up, pulling Anna closer. "This doesn't concern you," he growled. But Charles could only stare at his brother, disbelief clawing at his chest. "What do you mean, collect?" Joseph waved a dismissive hand, and the shadows began to thrum. "I mean to reclaim our legacy." The words tumbled from Charles as he fought to comprehend the chaos swirling around him. "The power hidden beneath this city runs deep," Joseph explained, his voice dripping with calculated glee. "And Anna's awakening is the key to unleashing it. You've dragged her into a war you can't win." Shock pulsed through Charles, an icy grip settling over him. He turned to Anna, who was wrestling with doubt, staring at the two men who claimed pieces of her life that felt like lies. "What does that mean for me?" In that instant, as the lines blurred between truth and betrayal, a tremor ran through Anna's body. Something shifted in the air, and a devastating realization knocked the breath from Charles's lungs. The truth wasn't just about their family. It was about a power struggle that would tear them all apart. The shadows closed in, the fabric of their reality twisting tighter. "Anna, don't listen to him," Charles shouted, fear consuming him. But as the light dimmed and the shadows coiled hungrily, a horrific truth screamed to be heard. Everything they thought they knew began to unravel in a tidal wave of darkness. And as the chaos magnified, one question hung in the air like a thick fog. What if Anna was never meant to be saved, but to lead them all into the abyss? As the shadows tightened around Anna, Charles felt a knot of dread twist in his stomach. The pulsating energy surged, as if the city itself was alive with tension. "Anna, please," he shouted, desperation clawing at him. "You don't know what you're getting into." But Anna didn't respond, her focus shifting to the woman before her. "What does this mean?" she demanded, eyes narrowing with determination. The woman smiled, a glint of something sinister in her gaze. "You are meant to wield the power of our bloodline, Anna. Your destiny is to rule, to reclaim what was lost. Your father has kept you ignorant." "No!" Charles roared, stepping forward, ready to shield Anna from the truth he feared. "I kept you safe." But suddenly the ground beneath them vibrated with urgency. A tremor rumbled, and cracks raced through the pavement. The air thickened with tension as whispers rose among the crowd. "What's happening?" people gasped, eyes wide, fear pooling in their voices. Then it happened. A fierce explosion of light erupted from the chasm, blinding and vibrant. It rolled through the air like a wave, dissolving everything in its path. Charles squinted, shielding his eyes, feeling the force wash over him. Glimmers of blue electricity arced outwards, snapping through the chaos. And then, as the light dimmed, a figure materialized from the brilliance, arms wide, basking in the chaos. Charles's heart plummeted as recognition clawed at him. "Oliver," he whispered, shock coursing through his veins. Oliver, his long-lost brother, stood there with a wild grin, eyes gleaming with madness. "Surprise, brother, you thought you could bury your past?" he shouted, laughter twisting the air. "This city belongs to us." Anna stepped back, uncertainty flickering across her face as she absorbed the weight of this revelation. You're alive?" "Of course I am," Oliver thundered, stepping closer. "And now, dear niece, it's time for you to embrace your real legacy." Chaos erupted anew. People screamed, scrambling to escape, hearts thrumming against their rib cages. The screams blended with the thunderous heartbeat of the city, shaking Charles to his core. "Anna, don't listen to him," he cried, fighting against the din. But she could only stare, equally captivated and horrified. Oliver, in his manic spree, cast his arms wide, summoning shadows like a conductor leading an orchestra of darkness. "Join me, Anna. Together we can destroy the lies and claim what's ours." The crowd's murmurs intensified, voices bubbling over with confusion and disbelief. "Is this true? More family?" someone whispered. And then, in an instant, everything shifted. A blinding light exploded from Anna, a cascade of energy cracking against the fabric of reality. "Enough!" she shouted, her voice resonating. Echoes rang. The shadows recoiled as if burned by her brilliance. It was a moment of power, a discovery of strength no one saw coming. Charles felt a rush of hope. Could she truly control this? But then, the ground shattered beneath them, cracking, breaking, spiraling into an abyss that seemed hungry for everything and everyone. "Anna!" Charles yelled, reaching for her, but just then, she turned, eyes blazing with a fierce resolve. "I know what's at stake." And as the darkness loomed closer, swallowing what light remained, one shocking phrase escaped her lips, sending shivers down Charles's spine. "I choose my own path." In that moment, something within Anna shifted, transforming her from the lost daughter into a figure of undeniable strength. The crowd held its breath, jaws dropping, hearts racing. The implications swept across their faces like a tidal wave, joy swirling with dread. But just as quickly as the energy surged, it collapsed. A blinding white flash erupted again, obscuring everything. The world felt like it was tearing apart around them, and as the echoes of chaos faded, stark silence fell. And through that silence, one piercing truth echoed. Anna was no longer just a girl lost. She was becoming something far greater, and that seismic shift changed everything they thought they knew, leaving them all to wonder, who would rise from? Anna was now a figure wrapped in shadows, exuding power that felt foreign yet intoxicating. The crowd was hushed, breaths hitching in unison, waiting for what would come next. "Anna," he whispered, desperation clawing at his throat. But her gaze was distant, locked on Oliver and the woman, the so-called harbingers of her fate. "Your legacy is power," Oliver echoed, voice laced with temptation. "You were born to lead." But just as Anna opened her mouth to respond, the ground trembled again. It wasn't just vibrations, it was a violent convulsion. Eyes widened, hearts raced. "What now?" a voice cried from the crowd. Fear rippled, sending shivers down their spines. Then, out of nowhere, the sky shattered with an explosive roar. A bolt of lightning struck the cafe, bright and alive, illuminating the darkness in a flash. It crackled through the air like a whip, and all seemed to hold their breath. And then, silence. For a split second, the world paused. Time hung, suspended in the shock of what had just happened. Then the ground shook again, this time with a ferocity that sent everyone tumbling. Charles hit the ground hard. Breath knocked from his lungs. "Get up!" shouted someone nearby, but the chaos swallowed their words. In the haze of confusion, Charles scrambled to his feet. His heart raced as he searched for Anna. "Anna!" he yelled, desperation mixing with fear. When the dust settled, he caught sight of her, shaking, standing tall among the wreckage, shadowy energy pulsing around her. But it wasn't just her power that radiated. It was something deeper, rooted in the very fabric of their being. "Wait, what's happening?" she gasped, looking dazed. The light around her flickered, revealing cracks in her newfound strength. And then, as if pushed by an unseen hand, a figure stumbled into view from the remnants of the cafe. Charles's heart dropped as he recognized the familiar face. Mary. "Mom?" he whispered, disbelief knotting in his chest. But there was something off about her. Her eyes filled with unrestrained terror that pierced through the haze of pain. "Charles," she rasped, voice trembling, "you need to listen. Don't let Anna be a part of this." The crowd fell silent again, stunned, absorbing her words. "What are you talking about?" Charles demanded, stepping forward, a mix of anger and confusion swirling inside him. But before Mary could reply, another voice broke through. "You don't understand." The crowd turned to see David, eyes wide with realization. "This isn't just about Anna. It's about all of us." "What do you mean?" Charles felt the weight of dread settle in like an anchor. "It's the blood!" David shouted, shaking as he took a step back. "We're all connected to something, something dark." "What?" Voices murmured throughout the crowd. Shock echoed like ripples in water. Before anyone could process the enormity of David's claim, Mary stepped closer, eyes wet with fear. "Anna, your grandfather, he sealed our family's fate when he made a decision years ago. It has consequences that extend beyond what you could imagine." And just like that, the ground beneath them began to crack again. The shadows swirled, creating tendrils that reached out, pulling at the light. Charles looked around, panic dancing in his chest. What were they revealing? Then Mary's voice became a furious cry. "Charles, we need to stop this, before it consumes us all." But it was too late. In a chilling twist, the light surrounding Anna erupted into a whirlwind of energy, spiraling and blasting outwards. Charles felt it knocking him back, like a wave crashing against shore. "Mom!" he yelled, but she was gone, pulled into the chaos as the energy imploded, engulfing eyes wide with horror. The world spun, everything blurring. As the dust settled and the echoes of shock faded, a new heaviness filled the space. Where was Anna? Where was Mary? "Charles!" Someone screeched, bringing him back from his daze. He turned to see David, wild-eyed, trembling. "It's not over. It's only just begun." Charles's heart raced. The foundation of everything he believed began to crumble, leaving uncertainty in its wake. What was the truth? What terrible legacy had they unleashed? As uncertainty wrapped around him like fog, he knew one thing for sure. Everything had changed, and the real battle was only just beginning. The air crackled with tension as the dust settled around them. Charles's heart raced as he stared at Anna, glowing with barely contained power. This was the moment they had been waiting for. But it was also the moment that could tear everything apart. "Anna, please!" he cried, desperation clawing at his throat, his hands trembling. "You don't have to listen to them." Oliver stepped forward, his grin twisted. "You think you can protect her from her destiny? The blood runs deep. She was born for this." "No!" David shouted, his voice strong. cutting through the chaos. Anna is not a pawn in your game. You don't own her. The crowd around them watched, eyes wide with shock. Gasps echoed through the gathered throng, the murmurs weaving a tapestry of fear and confusion. Was Anna really destined for power, or was she merely a pawn caught in a battle between two brothers? Suddenly, the shadows surged again, but this time, Anna raised her hand. "Stop," she commanded, voice booming with authority. The swirling darkness hesitated, swirling slowly, as if recognizing the force within her. "Don't you see?" Oliver said, panic lacing his voice. "This isn't just about you. It's about our family's legacy." The words hung heavy, piercing through the chaos like an arrow. The crowd held its breath, tension palpable in the air. How could Anna choose? This was her life. And yet, Charles could see the flicker of doubt in her eyes. With a steely glare, Anna looked from Oliver to Charles, her heart racing. "You both talk about legacy like it's a gift, but it's a curse." She felt the energy swell inside her. "I choose my own path." With that declaration, she unleashed a surge of energy that lit up the darkened cafe, casting shadows that danced wildly across the walls. The fissures in the ground began to close, the dark energies pulling back, retreating as if in fear of her newfound strength. Charles felt a rush of hope, tears prickling his eyes as he realized she was choosing herself. "That's my girl," he whispered. Warmth flooded through him as he saw the determination on her face. In that moment, a calm swept over the crowd. They could see Anna, no longer lost, but powerful. The whispers subsided as they held on to the fragile threads of hope woven through her words. Oliver stepped back, disbelief etched on his features. The shadows continued to recede, leaving the air lighter, filled with a new promise. "What? No, it can't end like this." The shadows began to dissipate, breaking apart like smoke in the wind. "You can't just walk away from your destiny," he shouted. "Watch me," Anna replied, standing tall, defiant against the darkness that once ruled her life. As the final tendrils of shadow unraveled, the crowd erupted in cheers, breathing in the light that Anna had conjured. Charles moved toward her, wrapping her in a warm embrace that felt like home. They had fought so hard to come back together, and now they were free. "Thank you for believing in me," she whispered, her voice shaking with emotion. But even in that moment of triumph, a shadow lingered within Charles's heart. There was still a question left unanswered. Would other pieces of their past surface? As the crowd cheered, he looked over Anna's shoulder, searching for Oliver, but he was gone, swallowed by the remnants of his own darkness. With a growl that echoed into the distance, he vowed to return. "I guess this isn't over," Charles muttered to himself, grip tightening around Anna's hand. "We'll be ready," Anna said, a spark ignited in her gaze. Together, they stepped forward into a brighter future, bonded by more than blood, but by the strength of their choices. And as they disappeared into the new dawn, one thing was crystal clear. The legacy was not a burden, it was their strength. But how deep did the shadows go? Only time would tell. You must subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this jaw-dropping ending. Don't wait one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know about this incredible twist. Only true fans understand the importance of backing our journey together.